What's going on, everyone? Jack here from Half Chrome, and this is the Blackhawk 3 Pro. It is the newest and best drone that you can get from EXO. It's pretty similar to the Blackhawk 2 Pro, but it does have some really important upgrades. First, let's look at this gigantic battery on top, and it serves two purposes. One, you get an improved flight time of up to 53 minutes. And two, it houses a remote ID module. That's right, this thing is FAA remote ID compliant, which means, yes, it is absolutely legal to fly in the United States because it does weigh over 250 grams. Another important change is they added a couple of antennas to this thing, boosting the range to over 9 miles. The app got a minor workover and they added a couple of intelligent flight modes.
The drone comes in two colors. You get the America-themed red, white, and blue, or the also fairly American gunmetal gray.
Stay tuned as we kind of dive into the EXO Blackhawk 3 Pro. All right, so let's talk about EXO, the company. It is, yes, an alternative to DJI. This is a solid camera drone, and there just aren't a whole lot of other options out there. I know a lot of people don't trust DJI. EXO is owned by Miami Labs, which is a US-based company, and they handle all the customer service. These drones are actually produced by Hubsan, but EXO handles the North American market, all of the marketing, all of the customer service, all the things that matter to you as a consumer if you're based in North America. This drone, unlike all DJI drones, is not geofence, which means you are the pilot. You make all of the responsible choices of when and where and how to fly. A lot of people have run into issues with geofencing, and that certainly isn't going to be a problem here. Now let's talk about the camera, and it is a really nice camera. It's the same camera that was on the Blackhawk 2 Pro, which I really did like. It's a 1/1.3 inch sensor, which is the same sensor on the Mini 3 and Mini 4 from DJI, as well as the Air 3. It is 4K capable, 4K 30 frames a second. If you want to go to 60 frames a second, you can record in either 1080 or 2.7K. You can record at 200 megabits per second, and that is huge. You're going to get a ton of information, lots of good data, lots of good images.
Okay, so we're looking at some footage from the EXO Blackhawk 3. This is all 4K, 30 frames a second. It is stock settings. I did not change anything because I want the user to kind of know this is what you're getting out of the box. Now you can shoot in manual mode, you can adjust your settings, you can even add ND filters to this drone. But this is what you get out of the box, and then as a photographer, you can decide to manipulate it how you want. I didn't change anything in post-processing or anything like that. This is just straight stock footage so that you can kind of, see what it looks like when you get this drone up in the air without having to tinker with anything. Now, a couple things to just kind of keep in mind with the Blackhawk, right? 53-minute flight time. That is the manufacturer's flight time. Are you really going to get that? No, that is under perfect conditions flying this battery all the way down to 0, which is really bad for battery health. More realistically, probably upper 30s, lower 40s. Still really darn good. I took this thing out a handful of times and I never depleted an entire battery. It's solid, right? And I was flying on some pretty windy days, right? Windy days, it's going to suck a little bit more battery than a windless day, right? The other thing is range, right? You're also not going to get the full range, but that's okay. Remember, you have to keep this drone within your visual line of sight at all times. Something to keep in mind. Now, one more thing I want to talk about is the Blockbuster mode. So the EXO Blackhawk 3 has a really interesting mode called Blockbuster, and it's very similar to the master shots that you'll see on some DJI drones. So you select a subject, and then you hit go, and it will fly a bunch of really dynamic shots around that subject. I think this is a really good mode to use really when you go to any place where you have a really interesting focal point. You do a bunch of different shots in a bunch of different manners. I think this is a good way for photographers to learn, how do I get some interesting shots, and what are some of those interesting shots that you want to collect? And then this is going to do it for you, and then you can kind of stitch them together. I'm going to speed this whole sequence up, and of course you can see what it looks like in the phone as it strangely names some of these shots that I don't quite understand, but it is a really neat feature to have and definitely something you should try out. Having a little light on the bottom is nice if you're flying at night. And you know what else is nice if you're flying at night? Night modes. There are a couple different night modes on the Blackhawk 3. And this shot here, I took it at a Halloween Fanatic's house right after sunset. So it wasn't super dark, so I had it on one of those medium settings. I think it does a pretty decent job here. And then I also did it once the sun was completely gone, and I bumped the night mode up a little bit. So you can kind of take a look at that as well, and you can kind of judge for yourself. I don't want to put ideas in your head. This is good, this is bad, this is what it is. You know, shooting at night with a drone is always going to be a little bit of a challenge. You know, the larger the sensor is, usually the better, but it's always a little bit better if you can shoot in brighter situations. But you know what? If you want to capture, you know, a spooky Halloween theme home at night, you're going to have to do it at night.
Okay, so I can save my footage right here on an SD card, and that's typically what I do. But this EXO drone also has 64 gigs of internal storage. That is actually really nice. A lot of drones only give us 8, and that makes no sense to me, right? If I'm recording in 4K, I need at least 32, if not 64 gigs of storage. Well done, EXO. I'm a big fan of that. You'll notice these little eyes in the front, and they're not decoration. This is obstacle avoidance. We have obstacle avoidance sensors in the front. We have obstacle avoidance sensors in the rear. And yes, we have obstacle avoidance sensors on the bottom. And yes, I did test the obstacle avoidance. I tried to get this thing to fly into a tree. It just would stop, and I couldn't push it forward. Then I put the obstacle avoidance on bypass, right? Will it go around an object? And again, tried to fly into a tree, and thankfully it went around. So yes, obstacle avoidance is really nice. Obstacle avoidance is a great feature. Now don't rely on obstacle avoidance. It's there to help you if in case you missed an object or something. But it is a really nice feature to have, and thankfully it's working on this guy. Now you do have to turn it on after you get the drone in the air, so don't forget to do that. So the obstacle avoidance with the remote ID makes this a safe and legal drone for you to fly. Now, one little thing that I ran into, don't skip the sign-in process when you go to fly this drone, or it's not going to take off because, you know, the remote ID needs you to sign in. I'm not exactly sure on all the details, but if you skip that step, it's not going to want to take off. So go back, log in, then take off, and everything will be all good. This drone does have a bunch of intelligent flight modes. There's a return to home, there's a follow me, there are waypoints, there's a lot of good stuff. Actually, the follow me, you can either do the GPS where it's following the remote, or you can do an active track where it's following a subject. It is nice to have both of those options, and I'm going to dive into both of them so you can see how they work.
All right, so we're going to start with the active track follow me mode, where basically you're just going to draw a box around the subject and it's going to track. You can do trace, you can do parallel, you can do orbit, so you have a few different options, but it's also you're going to need a good phone to do this. I was using an older iPhone and it told me my phone didn't have enough processing power. You know, I switched to the iPhone 14 and then it was fine, but just something to kind of keep in mind. You can still control the drone, which is nice. You can see I was moving it up here, but you have to move slowly, and if there are obstacles in the way, odds are it's going to lose it, which is why the follow me mode, the non-active track, is another really nice option, right? So you kind of will get the drone where you need it to be, and then it is going to follow your subject. It's not going to lose you because it's tracking the remote, it's tracking the phone, which is nice if there are obstacles and things in the way. So you just kind of have to make sure that it's clear of obstacles. And yes, you can still control the drone and the gimbal and move it around, so you can kind of frame the subject the way that you want. So it's nice to have these two different follow me options.
So if you are interested in a Blackhawk 3 Pro, I've got a $100 off coupon in the description down below. Make sure you check that out before you purchase this drone, because they're not cheap, right? If you want a good quality drone with a nice camera, it's going to cost you some money, and you know what? Might as well save $100. It also is Class 8 wind resistance. I had this thing up in some pretty windy conditions. I'm outside of Chicago, and it's just a nasty time of year. In fact, I'm struggling to find nice days to fly this, but you know, that gives me a chance to test out its wind capability, and it handled some pretty intense winds. So EXO does include a nice carrying case, which I don't think can be understated. It is nice to have a place to put all of your stuff. It's nice and compact. It's a shoulder bag. You know, the remote folds up and slides right in here, no problem. It is nice that EXO includes little things like this that you just don't get from some other companies. If you're thinking about going pro and you want to learn more about how to pass the Part 107, I've got tons of information on that also in the link down below, so make sure you check that out. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. Good luck everyone and happy flying.